In this video, I want to address the concern of, will you ever run out of memory palace locations? And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll see that they're actually endless. So the first thing to note is that you know a lot of places. Now, some of them you'll know them well, like your home or, the home of a good friend of yours. And some of them you will know not so well, like somewhere you visited, 10 years ago, a hotel you stayed at on holiday, or what your primary school looked like, or something like that. Now, for the ones that are very distant in your memory, you can still use them, absolutely. You can't put as many locations in them, generally speaking, though. So the more you know a place, the better you know a place, the more that you can put into it. Now, when people start out using memory palaces, it's really common that they place the locations really far apart. And in part, that's because it's what you see on the web, in blogs that you read. And it's because when people start out, it is easier to both have faith in the system, but also easier to get your head around. You walk into a kitchen and you use the sink and the fridge and the oven. 3 locations, that's it. But the reality is if you know a place really well, there's actually a lot more locations than you're actually using. Now, memory athletes, I'm pretty sure most of them, I know I do, put their locations really close together. And that's because we need to store a lot of information, both when we're training and in competitions. So in a competition, you might have half-hour memorizing of numbers, where you're putting 6 to 9 numbers on a location. And you need a lot of locations. So, if you have somewhere you know well, or somewhere that you can video, so that when you make your locations, you can have a look at all that detail, you can make those locations much closer together. So if we just take my kitchen, for example, if I was to make a pathway through my kitchen, if I was talking with a student and they were fairly new to the techniques, I would be saying, on the bench, on the stovetop, in the stove, maybe in the sink, on the fridge. The reality is if I was making it for myself, it would go something more like, when I first walk in, the top drawer on the right-hand side. Then on top of that bit of the counter there, I have this little tray of salt and pepper and little things, so I probably use there. Then next to that is a pot with wooden spoons, spatulas, things like that. So I would use that next. Next, it would be the stove, probably, because that's directly next, onto the little rail where I hang tea towels, and then into the oven, maybe on the top shelf, and then right at the bottom. Sometimes I don't really like using like drawer, because that become confusing, but I'd probably use, top shelf in the oven and then right on the bottom of the oven. Then if I go under the oven, it's actually not joined to the floor and there's this little space and all the crumbs go under there, so I would put a location under there as well. From there, I'd probably, because of the layout of my kitchen, it's a galley kitchen, I'd jump across to the opposite side. I'd definitely have one just on the bench top there, but I'd probably have one sliding down the bench top. So on the bench top, sliding down the bench top, I would go in probably not the top drawer again, but I might go in the second big wide drawer on that side. I have a little PowerPoint thing that I can push and you open it out and there's a couple of PowerPoints in there, so I'd use that. Then I'd move further along the bench and I've got a big fruit bowl. So I would put some stuff in the fruit bowl. I've got 2 pictures on the wall kind of above that, and I would probably use, the railing above them. Above that, there's these 2 lights that hang down that light that kitchen bench area. So I would be using them. Then I'd go a little bit further into my kitchen. I'd probably avoid the next set of drawers on the right-hand side because maybe it'd get confusing. I might use the middle one or something like that, or maybe the top ones above would be better. So the top ones above, I'd use the outside of the cupboard. I'd go into the cupboard. I'd probably put it among the glassware, and then maybe the top shelf where I put the jugs and things like that. From there, I would go maybe into the dishwasher on the top rack, and then into the dishwasher compartment where the powder goes. I'm up to my sink now pretty much, and I've got like a little drying rack thing. I would go in the drying rack, then it would be on top of the tap, then I'd probably go in the other sink that's the opposite to the drying rack one. I'd go under the sink and there's some recycling bins. I'd use each of those bins. Maybe not, because that could get confusing. The first bin and then on top of the bin. And look, I'm about halfway, 3/4 of the way through my kitchen. I do have a big kitchen because I love cooking, but you can see there's a lot of locations just getting shoved into that room. So that's the other thing is, put more locations in. The other thing I want to point out is I have some palaces that I know well where I have multiple pathways. So I've got my standard pathway, which is the one that I built first through that place. And then I have alternate journeys. And so the way I make those pathways is I tend to do them from a task. So I say something like, okay, so I've got my normal journey that goes from, outside the front all the way through the house. But I'm going to make a journey that starts with me standing in my bathroom and thinking, I need to put on a load of washing. Now, the interesting thing is you'll find that you choose different locations and it's a different task, a different pathway. So you go, oh, well, I need the dirty washing basket, which is there. And maybe when I used the last pathway, I didn't use that location. And if I did, it kind of is okay. It's strangely okay to have a different pathway and use that again. By the time I sort of get down to my laundry, I've stopped at various locations on the way, and you'll find that you make different choices of locations than you did the first time round, both consciously, but actually subconsciously, because you're on a different pathway. So, as humans, we've got a really good memory for these sorts of pathways and locations, and we go about very different activities in our house, when we're sort of preparing to hop into bed or put on a load of washing or cook something for dinner. So consider that. Consider making other pathways. If in the beginning that's a bit confusing for you, leave it out and just do one pathway per place. Except I will say that once information moves into your long-term memory, so let's say you have a pathway that you've created to memorize some long-term information. You've gone ahead and memorized that information. That's now 3 years down the track and you pretty much know that without seeing the images and the locations. You can use that pathway again. So you can basically go back and, well, actually I say that palace again. I would go back and create a new pathway starting at the beginning of the house, trying to not necessarily see the old locations and just making a new way through my house. The last thing I want to say around sort of, making those sort of standard memory palaces is videoing is really handy. So if you do know you've got a particular learning project, you're going to need a lot of locations, get your video out, go somewhere that you want to make a memory palace in, go to your library or a friend's house that's, friendly. Say, do you mind if I video your house? Or go to dinner there and take lots of photos of your friends and use that to help you add some detail, something like that. Video is your friend because it captures some more information when you're choosing the locations. Once you've made the pathway, you won't need the video. You'll be able to remember that pathway. One other thing I want to point out, and this is really crucial, is ultimately, over the long run, as you get better at using memory palaces, you will hold more information on each location in a memory palace. So when you start out using memory techniques or when you're looking at these sort of basic videos on the web, often we're putting one word on a location or like maybe two words in terms of a word and a definition. So two things in a location in a memory palace. The reality is when you start memorizing more complex information, you're often putting 10 things in a location in a memory palace. Now, those 10 things are not all on top of each other. They kind of create like a little mini pathway or palace around the original location. So one way to sort of picture this would be, at my house, the first location is out by the front letterbox area. It's just sort of like going into the slot of the letterbox where people put the letters. Now, if I was just putting one word there or one image, that would just be, using that place where you put the letters. If I was remembering some text there, I might have 4 or 5 images that I'm using sequentially to help me bring out that whole sentence. And so that might look like the first image is sort of going into the letterbox. The second image sort of is tumbling down the front there. Then it spreads out onto the grass in front of there. It might even sort of start to roll down towards the road and into the gutter. So you kind of make these little side pathways for each location. So if you're memorizing complex information, each location can be times out by, 10 or so locations. I hope that helps you work out that you won't run out of memory palaces You won't run out of locations. There's a lot of different ways that you can use these. You can even use imaginary locations in terms of from a movie that you've seen. You know a movie really well. You've seen it a few times. You can use the set of that movie or that series as a memory palace. Some people make memory palaces like in Minecraft or something and use what they've created as a memory palace. It's really just somewhere that you know well. So you do have a lot of places to start with your own places though, the ones that you know really well. Put them closer together. Try to get comfortable with the fact that that's still going to work, and that just comes with time and a bit of trust. And understand that over time, if you're learning something more complex, you can add extra locations at each location. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber to my channel, please do so, and that way you'll know when my new videos come out.